Everyone. My name is Lori Gagan. I am one of your co-hosts this evening on the Wellness Crusaders slash Main Street Media Utah.org. And I am joined tonight with and by my lovely co-host, Jessica Endicott. And I do believe that Kathleen Halal, our soil girl, is going to be joining us at some point this evening. But before we get started on our beautiful immune system, I'm going to read just a short version of our mission statement as well as our disclaimers. So, the mission statement for the Wellness Crusaders is to educate and empower you to be able to make informed choices for your health, the health of your children, our communities, and our earth. We are committed to fostering a world where the balance between human health and environmental stewardship is respected and nurtured. We hope you will join us on this holistic and transformative journey as we all walk together to create a healthier, more harmonious world for all. And for our listeners out there, we just want you to know that it's important that the listener understands that the role of the health coach is not to be able to prescribe or assess micro and macronutrient levels, to provide health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services, or to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, condition, or other physical and mental ailments of the human body. Rather, the coach is a mentor and a guide who has been trained in holistic health coaching to help clients positive, sustainable lifestyle changes and to be able to make these changes with the help of the guidance that we would like to offer. The listener also understands that we are not acting in the capacity of a doctor, a licensed dietitian, a licensed nutritionist, a psychologist, or any other licensed registered professional, and that any advice given by the coach is not meant to take the place of advice by your professional. If the listener is under the care of a healthcare professional or currently uses prescription medications, the client should discuss any dietary changes or potential dietary supplement use with his or her doctor and should never discontinue any prescription medication without first consulting his or her doctor. The listener also understands that the information mentioned in our talks should not be seen as medical or nursing advice and is not meant to take the place of seeing a licensed healthcare professional. And with that said, Jessica, I'm going to let you go ahead and start.
Woohoo! Thanks for getting all of that out of the way.
I love it.
It's so fun to be here, just me and you, Lori, so far. We haven't had an opportunity to just have a show together yet.
I agree.
We've done so much together. We've done so much work together and so much communicating and collaborating that this is pretty fun and awesome. So.
Well, I think because we're so like-minded in wanting to educate, our listeners and the people that we are working with as certified holistic health coaches, that our mindsets on the gut brain axis just are so connected.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's not just a certified nutritionist, right? We both just graduated with our recovery coaching certificate.
Yes, that was a great accomplishment. It was a year went by pretty fast. So, yes. Yep. So, congratulations to you on that.
Congrats to you.
And you know what? Some people may not even know what amino acids are. So, if they don't know that, they wouldn't even know what a certified amino acid therapist in nutrition and recovery is. So, why don't you talk a little bit about what are amino acids?
Yeah. So, we'll talk about, so amino acids. which is one of the main things that we do to support people who have mental health conditions and addiction, who are suffering with addiction. And there's Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen.
Hello,
Kathleen.
sorry, I'm a little tardy. I was meeting with a landscaper. I apologize.
It's okay.
So with amino acids, we are helping the neurotransmitters in the brain. A lot of the times our neurotransmitters get depleted from stress, trauma, addiction, substances like sugar, starches, alcohol, drugs, pharmaceutical medications. And the amino acids are supportive. They are the building blocks that help our neurotransmitters to be able to fire. So these are the chemicals that are in our brain. And when they're not firing optimally, people are suffering with anxious and sad thoughts, mood swings, ADD, ADHD, lack of drive, suicidal thoughts. And when we use amino acid therapy, we can help rebalance these chemicals in the brain so that people are thriving and living a healthy, happy life. But so that's what amino acid therapy can do. Both Lori, myself, and Patty are trained coaches with this type of therapy. And so if you are suffering with mental health, and that is one of our biggest factors or biggest drivers, is we want to be able to help anybody who is suffering with mental health, because it is on the rise. Like mental health issues, suicidal ideations, addiction, it's all on the rise. So please reach out to Lori, Patty, or myself so that we can help you with that. Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
That was a really awesome explanation. Looks like Kathleen is having some technical difficulties with the video, so she'll join us back. But, when she does join us, I would like to be able to ask her the question, because amino acids actually, like tryptophan, which tryptophan is one of the amino acids that converts over to a neurotransmitter in your brain called serotonin. And serotonin is the calming chemical that allows us to go from thought to thought. So when the soil is toxic, it becomes dirt, which we'll let Kathleen talk about since she is the soil guru. When these amino acids that Jessica was just talking about are depleted from the soil, that means that the foods that we are eating and that the foods that parents are feeding their kids also are depleted in these amino acids. So when they're depleted in these amino acids, what we see, and Jessica, you can attest to this because we work so much with families, we see this huge uptick, 300% increase since the mid 1990s, by the way, in ADD, ADHD. That's not even including the rise of anxiety, which is a word I don't like because I feel that it's a word that doctors like to label people with. And you see like these depressive, sad underlying thoughts of these teens that are now being raised in today's world with these toxic foods. And most parents don't have, Jessica, between you and I together collectively, we probably have a couple thousand hours that we, and you even probably more, together, that we have put into ourselves and educating ourselves, with being able to holistically support people in their journey of health without big pharma. But before I go any further, we see Kathleen just joined us again. Love to see your beautiful face. We can't hear you, Kathleen.
Yeah, I turned off my mic, so I won't disturb you.
So Jessica and I, when we got started, we were talking about the immune system, and then I wanted Jessica to explain amino acids. But because amino acids are also found in the soil, like tryptophan, which Dr. Don Huber always talks about tryptophan, why don't you give our listeners just some information on what's happening in the soil, which now we look at as dirt, and how toxic it is, and how whatever these farmers are growing in, how they have like, there's no nutrition in it. So let's talk a little bit about the dirt and the soil, because that's technically where everything is starting, is in the dirt and the soil. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? And yeah.
Okay, I would say we are all connected. It is all connected all the way from the soil biology to our body's biology to our brains. And that's why I think it's so important that we start thinking about the soil. There's a big difference between dirt and soil. To me, dirt is lacking in nutrients due to years of chemical inputs and extractive farming processes. Like the conventional farming practices with all the chemicals are really extractive processes. With each crop, you're taking nutrients out, you're taking it out, you're taking it out, you're taking it out. And then the chemicals that you're using is stopping the soil life from improving the health and doing what it needs to do to have a healthy ecosystem. So the chemicals are stopping the healthy processes of the biology and the bacteria and the fungi from working together. And a lot of the chemicals, say in Roundup, glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, is a mineral chelator. It was originally brought onto the market as an industrial pipe cleaner because they would flush it through the pipes of these big factories, and it would glom on to calcium and other mineral buildups in the pipes, and then they'd shoot it through the pipe out the back of the building, and it would clean the pipes. It was only after they had been using it as a mineral chelator to clean pipes that they discovered that it also killed weeds. And these ponds outside the backs of these buildings, the first thing they noticed was that it kills weeds as well as cleaning the pipes. And then they noticed that there was some pond scum that was kind of resistant to the glyphosate, and it could live in these poisonous ponds. And so they took the genes out of this pond scum and they injected it into seeds, which were all good hybrids, but they injected it in, and now they plant it everywhere and then spray it with Roundup, and it's what's called Roundup Ready crops. And they did that with glyphosate. Those are glyphosate type crops, and the other, that's like 80% of the GMO crops out there, and then the other 20% are glufosinate resistant, which is, they're called Liberty Link crops. And it's the same principle, that you can go out and spray the crop and it's still going to grow because it's resistant to these chemicals. So farm chemicals in general, I think everybody understands, even farmers, that they're killers. And the mentality up until now was that everything has to be about yield, 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 yield. We have to produce as much as possible because the farmers live on a shoestring. They work all day, all year, in all kinds of weather. They suffer. They're trying to eke out a living. And so it's all about yield. At, say, the grain elevator or wherever they're selling their product, they want to get the most yield. And what's happened is that we've been focusing so much on yield and not enough on what we're taking out of the soil. We haven't been focusing on the soil and the health of the dirt.
And so Kathleen, for the sake of our listeners who maybe don't kind of understand farming, what exactly is a yield? What does that mean?
Yield means how much they end up with at the end. How many bushels of wheat or corn. Yield is how much you're producing. And so the myth that is still commonly believed is that we can only get high yields if we use these chemical methods of farming. And what farmers are discovering now, who are learning regenerative methods, are that if you stop using these chemicals and you convert to focusing on the soil and soil health, you come out with crops that might have a slightly lower yield, but they have higher nutrient values, and you're doing less damage to your soil, which as a farmer, that's your value of your land, right? You don't want to see the soil become dirt, become sandy and light and dusty and blow away like it did in the Dust Bowls.
That exactly. I was just having a talk with Dr. Fleming, who also is from Iowa, where Howard is.
Yeah.
And we just interviewed him, and it was a great interview. So for those of you who missed the interview with Howard Flieger 2 weeks ago, you need to go back and listen. He's a third generation farmer out of Iowa, and he's talking the same lingo that Kathleen is. It was a powerful interview. Sorry, I just wanted to put that out there, Kathleen, because that was a good interview with Howard.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from farmers, but it's really about the issue now is about us losing our topsoil. Farmers are losing their topsoil. It's either running off when it rains or blowing away in the wind, and that's a real problem because we need good soil to raise healthy crops. But at any rate, back to what Jessica was saying, if you pay attention to soil health, you raise crops with higher nutrient levels, and these crops also have the good bacteria that comes into our body and helps our body thrive just like the plants thrive. So there's more and more science about the gut microbiome and the value of good bacteria and high nutrients in our overall health, including our mental health. So it's our immune system, but it's also how well our brain functions, how happy we are, how resilient we are to challenges. It's really like there's so much to explore right now.
And you know what? You brought a good comment up, Kathleen, and maybe I'll bring up the question comment, and maybe Jessica, maybe you can just kind of help us out on that. So you talked about the bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So we literally have trillions of bacteria in our microbiome, both good and bad. But if we're feeding our bodies with foods that are toxic, with bad bacteria, because the crops are toxic with these chemicals. Jessica, why don't you just explain, like, what does this bacteria do to the human body? And why should parents that have children that may have anxious thoughts, may have sad, overwhelmed, negative thoughts, may be on the spectrum, maybe they're ADD or ADHD, or maybe they're even suicidal, which right now we're seeing a huge uptick. I mean, especially in Utah. I mean, which could be leading one of the root causes of the food. So why don't you talk a little bit about how that bad bacteria chemicals impact the immune system?
Well, it's such a big picture, right? Because so what Kathleen was saying is how the toxins are getting into our plants, right? They are being sprayed with this. They are being sprayed with Roundup. They're being sprayed with these poisons. And our body is so incredible. It's so innately intelligent. And our immune system immediately recognizes when there is something foreign that is not supposed to be in us. So our immune system, it's not just in our gut, right? It starts in our nose. Like we have an immune system in our nose. Our skin is part of our immune system. Our mouth is part of the immune system, because as soon as something enters into our body, our immune system is like, wait, this is a foreign invader. And what it does is it sends out the army to go and clean up these toxins. If we have got too many toxins in our body, our immune system is constantly working to try and clean those up, because it wants us to get back to homeostasis. And homeostasis is the normal range. So when you're saying that your body's attacking itself with these autoimmune diseases, I want to get rid of that terminology that the body is attacking itself. The body is not attacking itself. What the body is doing is it's attacking these foreign invaders. The body is intelligent and knows what it's doing, and it's saying, danger, danger, danger. I've got to get this toxin out. So we're constantly feeding it. The immune system is constantly activated. And then this is where autoimmune diseases come in, because there is that increase in these antibodies. But when there's this increase in the autoimmune antibodies, now we're seeing the increase in inflammation happening. So now here's the increase in inflammation. Our body's inflamed, the joints are hurting, The brain is hurting. The brain is releasing microglia. Now, microglia have this job to go and clean up the dead cells. So they're going to clean up the dead neurons. But if they're constantly activated and there's constantly inflammation in there, they're constantly cleaning up. And so they're cleaning up some of the good cells too. So we've got inflammation in the brain, we've got inflammation in the body, we've got inflammation in the gut. And our immune system is just, it's never sleeping. It's constantly doing its job, right?
Right.
So this inflammation in the brain, now we're seeing an increase in the mental health crisis. But it's also, these toxins are also depleting the good bacteria in our gut. And the good bacteria is necessary for our body to fight off these foreign invaders as well.
That's a really great explanation. And before I talk a little bit about the brain and how those toxins, how it's impacting as a brain, Kathleen, can you talk about a little bit about regenerative farming? So we know that the conventional farming with all the herbicides and pesticides are toxic, and it's leading into the uptick of all of these chronic diseases, all the inflammation that Jessica was just talking about. So we know that there are solutions out there. So let's just plant the seed for our listeners before I go out and talk about how this inflammation and how these poisons affect the brain. So let's talk a little bit about regenerative farming and some of the stuff that you're working on.
Well, for me, the best solution is clean food. I mean, just know your farmer, go to the farmer's market, go to the organic, natural grocery stores or Whole Foods, or get food that's as clean as possible. And then that lowers the inflammation right off the bat because you're not putting toxins in. But in terms of regenerative farming, they're finding, scientists who are studying the nutritive value of the food in lab testing, they're finding that the regeneratively raised food, so the food raised basically without toxins, where you're focusing on the soil health and you're putting health back into the environment, you're putting nutrients back into the environment by caring for the soil and by stopping the chemical use. The food that comes out of that with the higher nutrients and being clean without the toxins is beneficial for our body, makes us stronger. And I'm always trying to think of a very concise definition of what regenerative farming is. The most concise definition I can come up with is that it is building the soil. It is farming that focuses on building the soil and increasing soil health, rather than conventional methods where you plant the crop and then take the crop. You're always taking. Regenerative is giving to the soil. And then in the end, the crops you come out with are healthy, disease resistant, high in nutrients, and you're taking care of the environment, and you're improving the value of your land and your farm because you're improving soil health. So,
and the produce, what they're producing, you're able to make more money from it. We know that farming is hard work. We listen to, Howard gets up at 5 a.m. and goes until 11 p.m. It's not easy work what he's doing, but
so hard.
It very true. So it's important, honestly, that our listeners, yes, there are a lot of toxins in what is growing, but regenerative farming, how long has it been out? I've been hearing about it for the last year, but
it's been taking off for the last 3 years, ever since the film Kiss the Ground came out, which is streaming on Netflix. Anyone can see it. Just tune into Netflix, check out Kiss the Ground.
Is that Gabe Brown?
Gabe Brown, one of the farmers who's featured in Kiss the Ground.
Why don't you talk a few minutes on Gabe Brown? So people that don't know him, I was even on the phone earlier with Dr. Richard Fleming, who I often interview on my podcast. He wasn't familiar with Gabe Brown. He looked him up and found him in North Dakota, but tell us a little bit about Gabe. You know him personally.
Yeah, Gabe's a superhero. So many farmers are superheroes, but Gabe, well, he was almost ruined by using conventional methods. He was a conventional farmer forever. And the thing is that these inputs are very expensive for farmers. They have to buy the herbicide, and they have to buy the nitrogen, which is petroleum-based fertilizer. And then they have to buy the antifungals and the chemicals that deal with mold and the chemicals that deal with the additional pests that you end up with. So it's very expensive to actually farm conventionally. And Gabe ran out of money, and the hailstorms hit his farm a few years in a row. So he didn't have any income. He only had expenses. And eventually he went to the bank and asked for a loan to purchase all those chemical inputs one year. And they said no. And so he had
How
to
long
figure-
ago was that he went? And do you remember, was it a decade ago?
I want to say 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
No, it was longer. Wait, it was longer. I'm really sorry, Lori. I don't want to answer because I'm not sure.
Okay,
It was some
that's
time
fine.
ago. But he
Okay.
was, hang on. Oh, in the 90s. My husband just shared in the 90s. It was a long time ago. And he had to save his farm, and he had no money to buy these inputs. So he was forced to figure out how to do it without putting in the chemical inputs because he didn't have the money. And so he figured it out, and he was like, hey, this works better. He goes, and my soil's better, and my animals are healthier, and I'm making more money because I'm getting a premium for my crops. So he set up Understanding Ag to consult for farmers. Any farmers can call him, and now he's consulting on over 34 million US farm acres. And his goal was 100 million, but recently I heard he changed it to 200 million because his phone's ringing off the hook. Farmers are so happy. They are making more money. They have
Wow.
healthier farms. They are increasing their topsoil. They are better able to hold water when the rains come. Everything is better. It's only upside for these farmers. But the biggest thing is probably making more money because they don't have to spend money on the chemicals.
Right.
And when they take their crops to market, they get a premium. And they're just happier. And so many of them are paying off their loans. They're not in debt. They're not miserable. Farmers are on such a treadmill. They work on such a thin margin. They work so hard. And the farmers who are picking up regenerative ranching and agriculture are making a lot of money.
Well, and I want to also add that it just tastes better too.
Yeah.
If you compare an organic apple to conventional apple, the organic apple is so much more juicy and tasty, and oh my gosh.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that it's not just organic. It's like this is past organic. This is organic plus, because to be organic more or less means the absence of these chemical toxins, which is already fantastic. And a lot of farmers are doing really well with just that, but this is like organic plus soil science. And that increases the nutrients, and that's what makes the food so delicious, Jessica. Like there's such a big difference in the flavor, and that's the nutrients. And there's a picture of Gabe's book called Dirt to Soil. It's a really easy read, and it's a story of his journey figuring out regenerative ag. Or you can go online. Gabe's all over YouTube, Gabe Brown, or you can look at their website, Understanding Ag, where if farmers are interested in converting and getting off the chemical system, they can talk to other farmers who are doing this successfully all over the US and Mexico. It's a miracle. Their farms are becoming the Garden of Eden. It's really miraculous.
It is. And Kathleen, can you just tell our listeners, what are you certified in? And can you talk about non-toxic communities, you as a founder of that? Because I honestly think I met you in 2015 at the Environmental Toxin Conference when Sarah Leaney, who used to work for Monsanto, Dr. Sarah Leaney was the whistleblower on Monsanto to say, hey, listen, I've been doing these lab rat testing, and they're all coming down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And that's the conference that I met Kathleen at. And instantly, just like you, Jessica, we became connected because we're honestly, I mean, we're healers. We want to educate. But can you chat a little bit about your accomplishments, because I got to tell you, I'm pretty honored, like, to know you because of your
Oh.
accomplishments, not just because of your heart and your passion, but because they were big accomplishments for you. So can you just...
You're too nice. I just got curious because my kids were sick. And as Jessica knows, and as you know, when your family's not well, you will do a lot of research to figure things out. And I just started talking to farmers, and I figured out that the poisons that they use for crop science or for raising crops, that's not great for the animals, not great for the environment, not great for anyone. That those are being used on schoolyards, in parks. People use them at their homes, and I just really found that shocking. And I just think it's a very poor choice. That's my mom voice coming out. It's a poor choice. It's poor decision making, and that there had to be ways to figure out how to not use these products and still have beautiful parks and school grounds. I just knew there had to be another solution. So I went out and I learned how to do organic landscaping. I'm certified by the Northeastern Organic Farming Association that takes the healthy farming principles, takes it to landscape. And the program's amazing, and it's taught by professionals who have organic landscaping companies. And I will tell you, of all the regions of the United States, New England has it going on. They
Really?
are much more aware. They're really ahead of things. They have all kinds of organic landscaping companies all over the place, making a good living. They're very much in demand, and they figured out how to do these things without chemicals. It's a big lie that we have to farm with chemicals, and we have to have chemicals to have beautiful parks or beautiful school grounds. It's just not true. So I co-founded Non-Toxic Communities to share my success in my own city of Irvine, California, convincing our city to adopt organic practices around the kids. And we took that model and we created Non-Toxic Communities so that people can go for information in their own community and figure out, learn about how we did it, figure out how they might be able to do it in their own community, approaching City Hall and finding a group, and, approaching, professional organic landscapers. It depends how far you want to go. But to me, it's all common sense. It's all common sense. Eating clean, understanding how things are farmed, taking care of our kids, taking care of our environment. That's what drives me. I mean, that's what drives really all of us. But the thing is, there's this big information block out there. There's this big myth that you just have to have Roundup. Have to have Roundup or everyone's going to die of dandelion exposure. It's like, it's silly. It's untrue. It's silly. And I'm going to put a plug in right now for a product that my husband and I invested in, and I worked very hard.
I was just going to ask if you could talk about that, so I'm excited to hear about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
me too.
I have
Well,
some
you know what?
pictures from this morning. I have pictures.
That's perfect. Why don't I talk a little bit about the brain, which takes us back to what do we do about immune health and soil health? Because again, it's where it all starts for. So, but just before I start talking about that, so you're pretty much saying you were the first person in the state of California to get your city, Irvine City, to go all non-toxic, organic, in the playgrounds, the parks, the schools, the things where the areas that our children play in. The next generation of doctors, trade schools, welders, however, you want to look at, it's the next generation. You were that first person.
Engineers, inventors, like whoever they're going to grow up to be. I will tell you that my city of Irvine, my group, when we got the policy passed with the city council, we were the first city to pass probably an official organics first landscaping program. I will tell you, there were other cities, there were other pockets who were like saying no more Roundup up north. I know Marin, there were groups of great groups of moms and community leaders who got together and passed, different policies in the county or in the parks. So there were other pockets, but we were probably the first major city to have an official city policy passed. And that was over 9 years ago. My city still has the most beautiful parks anywhere on the planet. And they're probably even more beautiful than they were before. And that's been over 9 years. They have the organics first policy. The ducks in the little streams aren't exposed to poison. The dogs aren't exposed to poison. The kids aren't exposed to poison. The toddlers can roll in the grass. And our parks are more beautiful than ever. And I'm very grateful to the city council who decided unanimously to stop using toxic products to landscape. You just don't need to.
Agreed on that. And for listeners out there, in about a half an hour, 45 minutes, we're going to be open up to callers. We'll announce the phone number. We'll put it up on the screen for the people who are watching opposed to listening. And for anybody who wants to send in an email question, you can send in an email to info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. Again, that's info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. I know that I've got some of my followers who don't really want to talk on the phone. Maybe they're just slightly a little bit shy, and so they prefer to email a question or two in. So again, we'll give you the phone number. You can email us at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com.
Let me just share, Lori, before we move on. Can I please share the
Sure,
pictures from
of
this
course.
morning in my yard? Because
Yes.
I had a landscaper come visit me from Nevada, and he's a big landscaper. And
Wow.
he said he's been looking for a non-toxic herbicide for a long time that's very effective. So he came over and I sprayed. And you've seen how it works. You know how it works. But I have pictures here that were 2 hours apart. So I sprayed at 10:30 and then at noon at 12:30 I have the after. So that's a before. Can we get them side by side maybe? I don't know. Okay, well that's a before. Can we get the next picture showing? The one after on the bottom. The bottom one is the after. Yeah, that's after. That's 2 hours.
Wow.
And is that the new products, Kathleen?
Not actually. I had some of the previous products
Okay.
around, but they work the same way. The new
Yes.
product will be called Firehawk, and it's going to start shipping April 15. So if you're interested, please contact us, and we'll put your name on a list, and I will reach out to you about ordering it. But it's fantastic. It desiccates weeds, and it does not hurt the soil biology, and it's not toxic for your pets or for bees or anything.
So basically, and I know the answer to this, but let's say you spray and your dog went out to go to the bathroom. I mean, their little paws, you don't even have to worry about it. Unlike any other chemical poison, which they say 6 to 8 hours, and technically glyphosate, when it's sprayed, is pretty much in the earth forever as we know it.
Yeah, glyphosate's half-life in clay soil is 21 years.
No, wow.
Right.
This product's around for under an hour and it's gone. So maybe can we show one more time? That's before. That's at 10:30 a.m. And then please, there's after. It's a little bit shaded because the sun moved, but
That's so crazy. What
You
did the
get the picture.
landscaper? How
the
was
landscaper, his eyes popped out of his head. He was like, I've never seen anything that works so fast and so effectively. He was super happy.
So we'll talk a little bit about the brain, but I want to make another comment that we'll come back to. The United States has probably some of the worst laws for the human that allows this toxic spraying to happen.
Yes.
Which is harming the immune system. But then you have places like Russia, who doesn't even allow
Yeah.
a GMO, a genetically modified organism
No
seen
Roundup.
in, because the leader of their country knows that it's poison to the human health, and he's adamant about protecting his citizens of his country. Yet here we are in America, supposedly supposed to be one of the leaders in the world, which right now with everything in the world that's going on, I love America. I love America how it used to be, but I have to tell you, I don't love the laws. I don't love big ag. I don't love big pharma. I don't love what the government is allowing big ag, big pharma to do.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you though, on the pesticides, it is the way our government regulatory agencies set the limits on pesticides. It's just according to what the industry needs. And it's been climbing up over the years because products like Roundup are failing. And so farmers and landscapers, whoever, they're using more and more and more. And so our regulatory agencies just permit more and more and more to be out there. And the other thing that really upsets me today, now live, in a few states, including Iowa, our legislators,
Oh,
our legislators
horrific.
are right now trying to pass legislation saying that citizens cannot sue the chemical industry.
Yes.
So say Bayer right now for Roundup, they're
Right.
trying to stop the lawsuits because Bayer is losing their shirts. They keep
And-
They
losing
should.
lawsuit after lawsuit.
But you
And
know what?
politicians that are standing up need
they're
to
padding
be,
their pockets.
these ones, these politicians who are trying to pass this law for industry's benefit need to be called out. I want
Exactly.
billboards with their faces and their names.
I'm in.
Because citizens should be protected.
And you know what? So we've all been watching that bill in Iowa because of Howard.
It's
And I saw that
unbelievable.
thread come through with Dr. Michelle Perro, who is also a wellness warrior fighter. And she said that, and I was flabbergasted.
It's
That because it
infuriating.
goes over to the vaccine industry. I'm sorry. Vaccinations damage. And listen, we all have children. We didn't know as young moms who maybe hadn't been in our journey right now. Vaccines have adjuvants in it, and adjuvants are ingredients like aluminum, mercury, lead, however they're going to open up the cell membrane to get the vaccine into the cell. Those are equally as toxic. And now, because we can't sue the vaccine companies when children, babies are vaccine damaged. And listen, I'm all for it's your choice. You can choose, but I'm also 100% on parents should be educated before they're allowed to make that choice. But it puts us into the same situation where big ag, like big pharma, have so much money to pad the pockets of these senators and these House and the governors. Shame on you. I don't care. We're in Utah. So, Cox, I am calling you out. Shame on you, because we know what you're doing with all of the mosquito spraying in the state of Utah. And you have doctors like Dr. Menick, which Kathleen, I'm going to meet with him next week. I'm going to drive out and meet his medical doctors. But I'm going to call all of these people out. Shame on you, because you're responsible for the harm on human health, and you're responsible for vaccine damage, and you are equally as responsible from some of the deaths that happened with big pharma and big ag. And so that's all I have to say. But with what you said, I'm going to switch over to the brain, because I want to plant a little seed for our listeners. And I'm sorry, this really just riles me up. So
you're so passionate about it, and you should be, Lori, because it's lives. It's lives. Our lives, our children's lives, our grandchildren's lives, our friends, our family. They're being impacted, and we've seen it. Like, we've seen it within our own family units,
right.
It's bull crap. It's BS.
That's a better word. It's a better word than I would have used, because I would have called the word out.
Come on, I'm trying to be classy here. And so my grandma told me today, she's like, Jessica, you need to stop using those swear words and be classy.
Oh my goodness. I probably
How
need to talk with her. Yeah. So let's bring it around to the brain. It's the computer of what operates our entire body and our thoughts, from blinking to moving your fingers to walking to talking. It's everything. And when I do my workshops, and Kathleen has seen me in action, the last one that I did, I had these droppers on the chairs of all the people that were coming in to watch Kathleen and I and Dr. Don Huber, who we invited down from Idaho. And for those of you who don't know who Dr. Don Huber is, he's one of the world's renowned scientists. That he was talking about what glyphosate was doing back when I was still on a tricycle. And he is one of the leaders who actually flies all around the world, educating them on the dangers of Roundup and the alternatives that they can use to farm their lands. So we talk about these chemicals, and I talk about the dropper, because the people would come in, and obviously there's a dropper, and they're like, okay, well, what's this? And I tell them I'll tell them about it at the end of the workshop. So it takes about one drop and Kathleen, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 1 or 2 Olympic-sized pools to change the chemical balance in the pools? Is it 1 drop or 2 drops of Roundup?
It's 1 drop. It's
It's
1
1 drop.
Yeah, and I've heard some scientists saying 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools, but let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say 1.
Okay.
1 drop in 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool. That week of a concentration starts to cause breast cancer cells to grow.
Right, right. And non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I would have it on, and then we would have up on our slides kind of showing the science, proving the science, showing the data, talking about all the amino acids that our brain is deficient in, the computer of the body. And at the very end of our talk, I would tell them to pick up their dropper. And I said, how many of you in here would be willing to take this home, go in your garage, if you're somebody who uses Roundup or 2,4-D or Liberty or glufosinate or all the other 10s of 20s and 30s of herbicides and pesticides, take 1 dropper, put 1 drop on the end of your child's spoon or your grandmother's spoon or your grandfather's or your spouse, and put it in their mouth, 1 drop. How many of you would do that? And of course, all of them are like, oh my God, I would never do that. I said, but that's exactly what you're doing when you're buying these foods that harm our immune system.
Yeah, would you put it on their cereal? Would you put it on their cornflakes?
Well, look at General Mills. It's already in General Mills. They've already showed and proved the science.
Everything.
So how does it harm our brain? So amino acids, our body does not make amino acids. What are some of the amino acids? We talked about tryptophan, which converts to 5-HTP, which converts to serotonin, which is the calm in our brain. And there's other calming amino acids like GABA. And what they do is they keep our body calm and able to make good decisions. And so when these chemical poisons like Roundup, 2,4-D, all the others, heavy metals, they cross our blood-brain barrier. Our cells are only about 1/2 of a hair thin. And we know that glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, that other scientists like Samsul Adams, Stephanie Seneff, have already proved that it's a water-soluble toxin, meaning that it can cross over a cell membrane and it can poison the inside of a cell. What's in the cell? You have what they call the mitochondria, which is the energy of your body, but more importantly, the energy of your brain. And you could have 8,000 mitochondria in one cell. You also have your DNA and you have your nucleus. It's everything that your brain needs. And it also makes these chemicals, neurotransmitters that we're talking about. So dopamine, serotonin, GABA, norepinephrine, all these things that we are seeing a deficiency in what is happening with our brain emotions. And then what do? You go to the doctor. And if you're a mom, we all know moms are overwhelmed because they're wearing multiple hats like we all do. We're all moms. 2 of us are grandmothers. And so we all continually have on multiple hats. We get up and we work. We're going to bed and we're still working. We're overwhelmed because we're trying to do so much that some moms out there, or even dads, because there's a lot of single parents out there, but even dads and even with, people who are married, you're overwhelmed, your body is wearing out, your immune system is starting to be compromised. Then you go into your doctor, and it's not all doctors, but there are some conventional medicine doctors, I'm sorry, who should not be talking about the brain. Listen, I'm a Dr. Amen, brain certified health coach. I have probably 1,000 hours in studying about it. Some of these conventional medicine doctors, they never learned it in college, in med school. They never go back to learn it. Why? Because they're busy being doctors. Those type of doctors, honestly, should probably be treating broken legs, broken arms, whatever, but they should not be treating the brain. Why? because the brain is not about big pharma. It's not about Ritalin. It's not about Prozac. It's not about Effexor. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's going to the root cause, which is the gut. I mean, the gut brain axis, if you think about it, your brain consumes about 33% of all the calories that you eat, but 100% of the toxins. That means if you're going to be a risk taker, if you want to play Russian roulette with your brain, and you're willing to take a drop, one drop, put it on the edge of your spoon, put it on your food, guess what? It's going to permeate the blood-brain barrier. And then what are you going to get? You're going to see the uptick in anxious thoughts, in sad thoughts, in suicidal thoughts, in digestive issues, in IBS, in IBD, in SIBO, all of these autoimmune diseases that seem to be thrown in one big bucket. But conventional medicine doesn't go back to root cause like, hey, what foods are you eating? Are they organic on the Dirty Dozen? Oh, what's the Dirty Dozen? Are they clean on the Clean 15? Oh, well, what's the Clean 15? How does my digestive tract affect my brain? Well, your brain's consuming 33% of the toxins and 100% of the toxins because it's consuming 33% of the calories that we're eating. What's on the end of your fork matters.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that is what we are trying to get across. It starts in the soil. Why? Because soil is dirt. You bring that dirt home with you, that poisonous dirt, because you're buying conventional produce and you're bringing it home and you're stocking your refrigerator and you're stocking your pantries, which brings me to another just quick point. We also interviewed Suzanne Roth-Paul. And Suzanne Roth-Paul sent me her free complimentary ebook for anybody who wants to email us at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. We will email you her book, Poisons in the Pantry. It is a beginner level book that will tell you how to get the poisons in the pantry out. Listen, we all know that not everybody can go to natural grocers or Whole Foods to do grocery shopping. But did you know that the 12 dirtiest foods, things like apples and grapes and cucumbers, that if you can't afford to buy them organic, then you choose something off of the Clean 15. And we will send you that information if you email at us. So the Clean 15, I like to focus on the Clean 15. Listen, those are the foods that you can eat conventional.
Yeah,
Those are the foods on your standard grocery list, even though they're still not going to be 100% pure clean. They're not. They're just not.
You
But-
know, for a food idea, for a show idea, Lori, I would like to do this. I would like to have a whole show about how you can get organic foods more affordably.
And that's even in Costco. Listen, none of us are really,
Walmart.
We're not involved with Costco.
Walmart.
Even Walmart, and I don't like China, but even Walmart, I mean, it's not putting all the stuff out there that Target. I won't even walk into Target, even though Kathleen knows that. I won't go into Target because I don't like how they market to our children. But they're still doing the best that they can. And that's a great idea, Kathleen. So we talked about the microbiome, how it's 80% of your immune system is in your digestive tract. So if you're feeding like Jessica was saying, what's on the end of your fork matters because it's also feeding your immune system. And if you're feeding the immune system all this bad bacteria, before you know, the flowers are being drowned out by all the weeds because you're suffocating them in all the poison. And it's all interconnected, which brings us back to Kathleen's specialty, what's happening in the soil versus what's happening in the dirt. And that's where we really are. So I'll kind of be quiet and let one of you take over from here.
Well, I thought it was, okay, so the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is a barrier to protect our brain from the toxin. Because it's supposed to be protecting our brain, right? But that overload, it's diminishing, it's compromising that blood-brain barrier. And I just thought that was like so so important to mention because you kept talking about the blood-brain barrier, but I don't think people realize the importance of that blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, Jessica, why don't you go into it a little, because it's not like a barrier, it's not like a wall. Can you explain a little bit what it is?
Well, it's the protection mechanism. It's so our immune system is actually set up to protect things from entering inside of our brain. And it's set up to protect these chemicals, these toxins, but it can't do it if we are constantly feeding it to the brain, because only certain things are supposed to enter our brain. That's the nutrients, that's the minerals, the vitamins, water, blood, and just the essential body systems are supposed to be entering our brain, not these toxins. And so our immune system is also like in part of our liver, it's part of our stomach, it's part of our intestines, it's part of our blood. And the immune system is trying to clean up all of these toxin overloads, these toxic burdens. But when it's compromised and it's overworking, things are going to get through. Things are going to get through that are not supposed to be through.
Yeah, because the junctions get looser, right, in the gut, and also
Tight
in the
junctions.
in the blood-brain barrier, right?
Right.
Right.
It
And
loosens
so
up,
we have, yeah, we have the villi. So the villi are like little carpets, right? So you think about a plush carpet, how it has all of these hairs, right? It has all of these luscious fibers. But when these toxins are going in through the villi in our intestines, and they grab the good nutrients and they pull it into our bloodstream. But the more that we're getting toxic overload, they're getting diminished. They are breaking down. It's like when you walk over a carpet many, 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 many times, right? That fiber, it breaks down. So now these little spots where the food could not get in before, where the toxins couldn't get in before, now they have these big holes. They're leaking in, they're getting into our bloodstream. It's penetrating areas they shouldn't be penetrating, getting into our tissues, sitting deeply inside of our tissues, inside of our brain, inside our organs where it's not supposed to be. And so, go ahead, Lori.
No, go ahead. I was going to add to what you're after.
No, and
what you're
so
saying.
see there again, our beautiful, beautiful body has these mechanisms set up to take care of us. And now our immune system is still trying to clean up. Like it's working its butt off constantly.
And Jessica, you have a couple of clients that you have been working with right now, specifically on amino acids, what our body doesn't make. And I've read some of your testimonies, and it's like once you remove the toxins from the food that they're eating, and you're adding in the amino acids because they're not getting them from the foods. I mean, tell us what happens, because it's your story, and it's pretty powerful in how short of a time that you can fix the way somebody is feeling.
Right. So the amino acids that we use, they do penetrate this blood-brain barrier. So they are one of the good foods, good nutrients that are supposed to penetrate the blood-brain barrier and give
because they're supplements. They're not big pharma medications.
Right. And they are things that we can get from our food when we're eating good, healthy foods, right? But the amino acids immediately enter the body and penetrate the blood-brain barrier and go into the brain and start repairing neurotransmitters right away. So some of my clients that I've been working with recently were, like, the one was very suicidal. She was incredibly suicidal. She wanted to end her life, and we got her on 5-HTP. Well, within 20 minutes of taking 5-HTP, the brain settles down. It calms down. These thoughts start to go away. These ruminating thoughts, we start to run away with the stories, right? There's a lot of stories that happen when we're depleted in serotonin, and there's all the what ifs. Well, we already have 70,000 thoughts a day with 81 different ways our brain interprets all of those thoughts. So throw this into somebody who's depleted with serotonin, and that's just magnified. That's just exponentially magnified, right? So those thoughts are even more intense for these people. But within 20 minutes, those suicidal thoughts started to go away. And checking in a week later, no longer suicidal. The suicidal thoughts are completely gone. They feel like they have their life back. They're living life again. They're outside. They're in, instead of being in bed. So that's one of my clients. Another client I had came to me, and I shared this on the show with Christina, but came to me and didn't know their name, didn't know how they got to me.
Wow.
Lived. And so I'm assessing the situation, right? I break out my oxygen, my oxygen monitor. I break out the blood pressure monitor, and like I'm taking their vitals and just checking in and seeing what's going on. And then immediately I think theanine. I need theanine because theanine is neuroprotective.
And theanine is a supplement. It's an amino acid supplement.
And it works on the GABA.
We're not talking big pharma. So
yep, and it works with the GABA receptors. But I knew that this client had a lot of stress too, and they had a lot of trauma that they were going through. And so theanine is neuroprotective. So I grab the theanine and I give them 4 theanine. And within a half hour, they were back. And I fed them too. I made a big, powerful protein smoothie with all of the good, healthy brain vitamins. And within an hour, they were back to themselves. They were completely coherent, working with me and communicating with me, knew where they lived, knew their name, knew how they got there, could recall everything about the day.
That's powerful. Had they ended up in the hospital or at an emergency room, God only knows what they would have been given by Big Pharma.
Right. Well, they could have been sent through like extensive testing too, right? A brain scan. They wouldn't have been fed the nutrients right away that they needed. They would have gone, because when you go to the ER, they're not feeding you. Like, no, you don't get any food for how many hours until they've run all of the tests on you.
Right.
And by that point, the brain is going to be even more starved.
Yeah, because it starts shutting down. And, it kind of goes, so I interviewed Dr. Richard Fleming last week, and I interviewed him on the heart. So pericarditis, myocarditis, what's happening with cholesterol. He wrote that book, Stop Inflammation Now, which I think that every household should have it, because inflammation is root cause of all the diseases out there. Anyway, the way he described the cholesterol, and I think I sent Kathleen, sent you this podcast in there. So we go and we're hearing about all these ketogenic diets. And yes, protein is very important to the body. However, you're getting your protein source, always making sure it's organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught if it's fish. If you're a vegetarian, a little harder to get. You can think of things like organic hemp seeds, stuff like that. But how he explained the cholesterol, we were talking about angiograms and how angiograms are not capable of seeing heart disease. And how he explained it was a really good analogy, but I kind of revised it using the Pac-Man mentality. So basically, he says what happens is that when we're eating these saturated fats, and the saturated fats could come from grass-fed, grass-finished, we still don't know. Conventional is worse than grass-fed, grass-finished, but we're eating foods that are high in saturated fat, which is harmful to the LDL. He says what happens when your immune system sees that there is an underlying heart disease and the cholesterol is in the tissue wall of the arteries, and somebody's saying it feels like they're having a heart attack or they feel the stress attacks, they end up going to their doctor, the emergency room, and the first thing that they want to do is an angiogram. But because the cholesterol is in the heart tissue wall, an angiogram is incapable of seeing heart disease. So they look at it, and what ends up happening is the doctor will say, oh yeah, well, we don't see any heart disease. Why? Because it's in the tissue. And until the Pac-Man start eating up all the cholesterol, all the bad cholesterol from bad saturated fats, it's starting to eat it up. And what they do is they get stuck in the tissue wall that an angiogram is incapable of seeing. And what happens are these white blood cells are eating this bad cholesterol, and they're plumping up, and they are getting sick until they clog up the tissue wall of the heart, and it begins to expand into the actual artery, which is where an angiogram could then see heart disease. But if the LDL and your white blood cells, your immune cells that are fighting for your life, are eating all of this cholesterol, those white blood cells are getting sick, and they're lodged in the tissue, and an angiogram isn't going to show heart disease. And then what happens is they start expanding. By then, heart disease is prevalent because an angiogram missed it. But we talk about, the toxic foods that we're eating. When you're not eating, a grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, regenerative farming, something that is not grown where they're feeding the farm animals, GMO corn, GMO weeds, all the food, antibiotics, all of this stuff, because guess what? When they feed the farm animals these toxic, poisonous foods, you're digesting it, which means that your brain's consuming 33% of the calories, but 100% of all the toxins. And we go back to this, this circle where we go from toxic dirt, toxic plants, because the dirt is sick, to then they go to the market, to they come home, they go to our pantry, and it's this vicious circle. And I can't say no one, that's the wrong word. There's not as many people as we need educating that we have to say enough is enough, and it's time to stand up. Tell your local supermarket who's not carrying any organics. Tell them you would like to see a few things organic. Pick stuff off of the dirty dozen, which we'll do a show on that. And carry more of the foods that are healthy to the body, that nourish the body, that nourish your brain.
Can I talk a little bit about the
Sure.
food show? With that?
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like a good segue. I wanted to tell you guys about one of my favorite products ever. And I don't know if we agreed to plug products, but I am so gaga.
Okay, we
about
can't
this
read it because
cottage cheese. It's
if
called
you go,
Good. Where do I have to go?
you have to go into settings, the gear shifter at the bottom, and turn off mirror. I had to do the same thing. That little gear shifter in the bottom of.
Weird.
There it is. You're good.
Okay.
Because
anyway,
it
yeah.
automatically goes on like that. Now we can read it.
This is fantastic cottage cheese. Good culture. I went to the food show in Anaheim. It's called Expo West, Natural Foods Expo West, and they have it every year. And it's this huge, crazy circus that takes over Anaheim. It dwarfs Disneyland in the crowds. It's insane. And it's so much fun though, because all the organic and natural products come, and they all present their products, and 70,000 people come to see it.
Wow.
And it's just rows of booths of food products, food from Italy, foods from the US. Some of it's questionable. They had Impossible Burger there, which is struggling on its last gasp.
Well, hopefully they'll be by the wayside soon.
I think so. But there are also really good products, and there are organic regenerative products like this cottage cheese.
Oh,
brand.
good. Can you bring it closer to the camera? Can we
Yeah.
see the regenerative?
Let me see where it says on the label. Hang
So
on.
Kathleen was sending me some
It's pasture
pics.
raised. Wait,
Okay,
there, pasture. Let's see. Pasture raised.
pasture raised.
No.
Anyway, and organic. So this is what I was talking about earlier about the regenerative farms that are supplying these foods are going further than organic in terms of understanding the soil health and respecting the soil health and building it. And this
I love
cottage
that word,
cheese,
respect.
they are the nature and health,
I
like our
love it.
bodies, like Jessica was talking about, respecting our bodies and really honoring the way we're made and trying not to damage everything. But this cottage cheese, the guy, he made a presentation with his investors, and he said when he had the idea of making a better cottage cheese, everyone laughed at him. But he was like, all the other products that are out there are slimy and watery and not that great. He's like, I can do better. Seriously, I am not kidding. I do not have one friend who hasn't tried this and decided they were hooked. And Lori, it was your husband who told me about this. And
Really?
yeah, and I walked up to the guy and I'm like, oh my gosh, your cottage cheese is like crack. Like I can't stop eating it. I would never buy anything else. And he laughed. He goes,
Wow.
I get that a lot, but nobody's likened it to crack yet. So I was like, it is that good. And they have several different versions, and they sell this in so many stores, I think even Walmart. So if you go online and look up good culture cottage cheese, see where you can buy it near you. I think it's even in the conventional markets, like what you were talking about, Lori. And
Yeah, I
it's
think
delicious.
Sprouts have them.
Sprouts, right? And
Oh, really?
the prices vary, so shop around.
What? Good
Sometimes
what?
it can be on special. Good culture cottage cheese, and this is raised. This is from milk of cows that are raised on regenerative farms, and it's getting quite a following. But I also met here. They give me a cup. Uncle Matt's orange juice. They make organic, all kinds of citrus juice. They're based in Florida. They're fantastic. But it's very exciting what's coming on the market, and the organic regenerative products do cost more now. But the more that come on the market, the more we'll find that are affordable. And not all, this is where it gets murky a little. Not all regenerative products are organic certified, and that doesn't necessarily matter. And that's where a little bit of research comes in, because the farms may not be able to afford the certification, or they might have one tiny reason that they can't be certified organic. But in my mind, you want to look for regenerative actually before organic. But we'll have a whole show on what to buy, but I just wanted to recommend this cottage cheese because it's crazy delicious. And I think we should all, when each of us finds something that's really special, we should talk about it. So anyway, I'll keep talking about products, because when I find things that my family likes, I like to share with people.
Oh yeah, I love to share too.
You know, yeah, because it's hard. I mean, sometimes switching, if you're used to eating sort of all the conventional foods, sometimes it takes a minute for your family to accept the switch. And sometimes you have to try a few products before you find the one that's really good. But I think we were talking about a couple weeks ago that once you get used to eating the very healthy food, you can't go back.
Mm-mm.
Then you taste the difference, in the flavor levels and everything else, the quality of the food. So I have one more thing to share that will seem random, but back to the soil conversation. Could we please have the picture put up of the farmers? It's Howard. I don't know if we showed this during Howard's talk or not. We may have, but this is a photo of Howard with Gabe Brown showing the
fun.
soil on Gabe's farm, and I wanted to talk about that a little.
And then I'm just going to read off the phone number because we're going to start accepting call-ins. The phone number, and we'll put that up on our screen after Leighton shows this, is 385-899-2134. Again, that dial-in number is 385-899-2134. And there he is, an American hero, Howard.
Now that's
and
Howard
Gabe
with Gabe Brown, who I
Yep.
was talking about earlier, who founded Understanding Ag, and he's helping farmers to switch over. The process takes a couple years, and so there is a transition time that seems kind of rough and uncomfortable, but I haven't met any farmers who have converted their farm to regenerative under Gabe's watch who weren't happy and were going to go back. They all say, we're never going back. We're making more money than we've ever made, and everything's healthier, and we're not going back. But this is a picture here of.
How many acres does Gabe have?
I don't know.
Okay.
I want to say 6. You know what? I'm not sure. We can find out it's in his book, or I can look
Okay.
it up and I'll share it with you later. But
Okay.
that's the soil from his farm. Howard
Wow.
picked up a shovelful, and can you see how it's very black and
Oh my
dark?
gosh.
Yeah.
They call that chocolate cake, and that's the ultimate. That's what you want with your soil. You don't want like a light brown, weak color like, cappuccino. You don't want cappuccino color. You want chocolate cake color. And this, you can tell by the smell when you see this soil in real life, but you can also tell just by looking at it that it's very nutrient dense. It's probably full of earthworms. There's probably a shovel full of earthworms there. And the earthworms, are our friends, and they help with all the soil biology and all the soil life. And that kind of soil is what gives you the nutrient density in the crops or the beef. If the cattle are roaming on that land, they help to create this chocolate cake soil. Everyone out there who's saying that we need to get rid of cattle are lying. They are not just misinformed, they are lying. There may be some who are misinformed, but the leaders of, spreading that message, like our friend Mr. Gates, it's a lie. The cattle are the animals who will save the climate and save the planet, and they create the soil. That's how we got our Great Plains in the United States. It was the bison. So
Kathleen, can I
Mhm.
ask you a question? Because you just made a really important comment. So you think saving, like, the farm animals aren't responsible for the climate. Would you
course not.
say that all of the chemtrails could possibly be responsible for the ozone breakdown and the climate change? I'm just going to put that out there.
I
That's a
have to
whole
tell
nother
you,
topic.
yeah, that's out of my scope of expertise. I don't know, but I will tell you that the chemical intensive farming, the conventional methods, all this Roundup use, that is definitely contributing to the issues with our climate, because when you do that, you stop the ability of the soil to be able to retain carbon. Carbon is held in the soil through the plants. Grow the plants, and plants take the carbon in, and then they spit out sugar. So they feed the soil biology, and the carbon is stored in the soil. But you need the healthy plants to get there. When you spray the ground with these chemicals and you do things like plowing the soil and so on, you break up all the life and you stop that activity of pulling down and holding the carbon. So yeah, conventional means are really hurting us in a lot of ways. And I would say the damage to our environment that might be coming from animals is from what's called confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, like Tyson chicken, when they have barns of like 10,000 chickens who never get to see the sun and never get to go outside. That creates a lot of pollutants. It destroys our environment and hurts the environment. And the pollution kills the soil and our river, waterways, and it just causes so much damage. Or for cattle, they have CAFOs for cattle. Maybe all of us have driven past one. It's a horrible smell. They're all in their pens. They're miserable. They're pumped full of antibiotics and drugs. They're not healthy, and that destroys the environment. That kind of irresponsible industrial farming, that is what's causing the problems with the climate, or contributing. That's a contributor.
So
Not the healthy cattle on regenerative farms who move around and create topsoil and are a part of the ecosystem, like in nature. It's when you take them out and you cram them all together in industrial farms to make a buck, to sell cheap burgers. That's what's ruining our planet. And you feed them GM soy, GM corn that you raise, you pollute all these acres of land, you spray it all with Roundup, then you have to truck it, right? You got to transport it. So you're trucking it to these animals who are in these sickly, confined areas for cheap meat. It makes people healthy, makes the planet, unhealthy, makes the planet, unhealthy, and the environmental runoff and the toxins are unbelievable. We have to change off of the industrial food system. That's the problem.
I agree. And then I'm going to add to that. So because Main Street Media Utah is based in Utah, there's a website you can go to. It's saveourgreatsaltlake.org. And there are a bunch of citizens in the state of Utah and Dr. Mitch, so Kathleen, you've chatted with him, and they are actually fighting against the mosquito spray that somehow got passed through the legislature here in the state of Utah that is allowing these chemtrails. And so when I brought up the chemtrails, we look at these crop dusters, whatever type of planes are spraying all of these toxic chemicals in the air. Just look up in the sky and you can see just the off-gassing that they're doing. But what's happening in the Great Salt Lake is the marine life is dying because of these chemtrails and all of the mosquito spraying that they're doing. And then we interviewed Elaine and her dad, about a month ago on how sick his daughter is. And it's coming with these chemical sprays. So, not only are we getting it from the foods and the water that we're drinking, we are also getting it from these chemtrails, from the planes that our states, and we know for a fact in the state of Utah, but that the government is allowing them to do in our states, which not only is harming the immune system, it's killing the marine life and all of the other farm animals.
Well, I'll tell you that at least in terms of mosquito pesticides, the organic methods are more effective. Like, it's just a choice. It's a choice of whether to buy the toxic gas or to use organic methods to control mosquitoes. I don't even think it's much of a cost issue, if any. It's just a choice to buy the toxins versus employing organic methods. And it's up to our leaders and our decision makers to care enough to say, oh, well, is there a safer way to control mosquitoes? Let's look into that. Nobody seems willing thus far, but the citizens are going to have to ask for it. The citizens are going to have to ask for their parks to be organically maintained, and they have to ask for the mosquito control to be responsibly done in a way that protects people from any mosquito disease, but doesn't crush the environment in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved what you were saying too about, it's not just the plants that are affected, it's the worms, it's the cows, it's we need all of it. We need each other. We need the animals. We need the worms. We need the bugs. We need the bees. We need everything. And when we are buying the meat at the grocery store that's not organic, that's not grass-fed, that's not pasture-raised, that's not any of these things, we are supporting those animals being inhumanely raised. We are supporting the torture of those animals, and we're supporting the depletion of our soil. We're supporting the depletion of our environment. We are supporting that. So it goes beyond like the price of it, right? It's the ethical standpoint that you want to take. Like, knowing this information now, I want to challenge our listeners to go and look at that meat. Like, go to the grocery store, look at that meat, and can you now mindfully pick that meat, knowing that these poor animals are being harmed to give you life?
Yeah, we need to work hard to connect our viewers directly with ranchers so that there's a cost-effective way to support ranchers who are raising meat that's good quality.
Right.
And the animals have a good quality of life.
Yes.
They're being taken care of. They're being treated with love and respect. And
yes.
Yeah. And, I think that's Jill Watson. She's one of the founders of Main Street Media Utah, which gives us the platform to pretty much say what we want when we speak the truth. Because you're not going to find on any other show, KSL, any of the other radio stations out there, you're not going to find the truth. And the truth is not only about the truth we're trying to spread on health and wellness and soil health, it's the things that all of the other co-hosts, our other colleagues are doing, like Steve Ace and Roy. They're spreading the word in the state of Utah on the truth on what's happening with our elections. Although it's not my talk, they're talking good things and they're talking the truth. So Main Street Media Utah.org has given all of us, whether you're on the political side, whether you're on the health and wellness side, they have allowed us to have the platform to speak the truth. And you're not going to find it on KSL. You're not going to find it on anything out there. Why? We were just talking about this. Money talks and bull S. That's exactly what it is. You pad my pocket. You don't talk about toxins. You don't talk about soil health. You don't talk about Roundup. You don't talk about vaccine damage. You don't talk about this, and I'll donate to this, or I'll fund your 501c3 for this. No, we need to get the truth out there, because America is in trouble. Utah is in trouble. We're in trouble. Why? Because our soil is sick, our babies are sick, our toddlers are sick, our kids are sick, our teens are sick, our young adults are sick, our grandparents are sick. And big pharma is not the answer. Going back to soil health and educating on what farmers are growing, supporting your local farmers, going to the farmers market, like I know both of you are huge fans of, and Jessica's always down at the farmers market every Saturday when it starts. But supporting those people because they need the support.
It's true.
So,
The lettuce we get at the farmer's market, I'm sure Jessica knows this too. The closer you get it to when it's picked, the more nutritious it is for you, but also the more delicious it is. And we pay more for that at the farmer's market, but it's so darn fresh that it lasts throughout the week with no problem. Like if we don't eat it the first day, it lasts longer, right?
and when food is nutritionally dense, you eat less food because it tends to fill you up faster because of the nutrients in what you're eating. So you no longer have to go and get one of those big gulps of plate because you're eating food that doesn't have the nutrition in it. You can kind of go back to where food is medicine and medicine is food, and your health is going to be better. But we'll go into our calls. I don't know if we have any email questions that one of you two want to read off. And if you don't, we can go into our final wrap up of what we would have to say. Let's go to the queue. Leighton, are there any callers? I know we didn't really announce it early enough, but I don't think we have any callers. No callers. Any emails? Any other comments, Jessica and Kathleen, that tidbits of information?
Jessica, I want to ask you, I want to hear more about this, because I think a lot of people are suffering with things like depression especially. Things are so stressful right now in the economy, wars in the world, politics, whatever it is that's worrying you. I think there are a lot of people out there who need to hear that there are alternatives to drugs. And what I'm amazed by hearing today is that, well, I'm not that familiar with depression and depression medications, but when you talk about these supplements being so beneficial, even in 20 minutes, especially when combined with food or things like that, it makes me think of the old days when, if someone had like a shock in their life, if they went to see their grandma, they'd sit them down and give them a cup of tea and a sandwich. Do you remember that?
Yep. Well, okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And it's amazing that you said that, because theanine comes from green tea. So theanine is a natural calming amino acid, right? But it's found in green tea. So why is that so soothing? Why is that so healing for us? Well, there's why. But these comfort foods, yeah, they're
it's comfort. So fast though, what you're talking about in 20 minutes. It's remarkable.
It is. It's really remarkable. What about like meditation? How do you, for the listeners who might have some anxious kids, or they may be anxious or overwhelmed, what are your thoughts? I mean, if you're cleaning up your diet, I know that, the meditation side is super important to calming the sympathetic nervous system. Tell us a little bit about that and what you teach, and what our listeners can email you on and hire you as that health coach or the meditation expert or the yoga expert. Give us a little bit of information on that.
So meditation is my sweet spot. It's so near and dear to my heart. And I believe that it was one of the things that significantly changed my life and altered my moods for the better. We have the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is our biggest nerve in our body. Runs from the base of our neck and then down through every single organ, and it sends information back to our brain. And so when we are in fight or flight, the vagus nerve is not communicating properly with our brain. So the vagus nerve has this bidirectional feedback with all of the organs in our body. And when we're stressed out, we're not breathing properly. We are constricted. Our breath usually resides up here in our chest when we're stressed out. And when we experience a trauma or stressors in our life, our nervous system shifts into sympathetic state. And the sympathetic state is, I'm not okay, we're gonna die, I've got to flight, I've got to flee, or I've got to freeze or faint, right? And so when we take deep breaths, it actually massages this vagus nerve. So as we take a deep breath, inhale and then exhale, it's massaging that vagus nerve. And now it's shifting us over into the parasympathetic dominant state, which is our rest and digest. So our organs are becoming relaxed, and the feedback that is going to our brain is, I'm okay. I'm okay. Now, when the meditation practice that I do is mindfulness meditation, and mindfulness meditation teaches you how to step into the place of becoming an observer. And when you step into that place of becoming the observer, you actually get to observe your thought patterns. You get to observe your thought process, and you get to pick and choose which thoughts you want to interact with. Now, if somebody is depleted with their chemicals, of course, we're going to use some amino acids to help them be able to sit and to be able to help them process and to be able to help them step into that place of the observer. A lot of people who are depleted in serotonin can't step into that place. And so we'll help with 5-HTP or tryptophan. But this does help to create new neural pathway firings within the brain, so that there's so much I can go into detail here, but I'm trying to break it down into simpler terms. But when you meditate, you are changing the neural pathways in the brain, because you are teaching your body how to sit and how to be less responsive. And you're breathing, you're focusing on your breath. And as you focus on your breath, you're stimulating that vagus nerve to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's a simpler way to explain it. I could go into like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and all of that and get deep into the brain of how the chemistry and all these parts of our brain work with meditation. But I think that's another day, another class.
Oh my God, I would love to do that with you. So let me just ask you a question by saying that. So how long do you have to meditate for? You don't have to do it for hours, right? So how can you do it in a short period of time? A busy mom or a busy dad, kids running around, they're really stressed out, they feel like they're in that sympathetic. What do they have to do, and for how many minutes can they do it?
3 simple breaths can reset. 3 simple breaths. So let's actually do it right now.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay. So take a big inhale through your nose, inhaling all the way down into your abdomen. Hold it for a second, and then exhale, pulling your belly button all the way towards your spine, letting go, releasing. Inhaling through your nose, following all the way down into your abdomen, so you're expanding in all directions. Hold for a second, and exhale, pulling that belly button towards the spine, letting go. One more big breath. Inhale. And exhale. Just 3 breaths.
Wow.
3 breaths.
Wow. That is a good wrap up. I absolutely love it.
It feels nice.
Yeah. So I guess that's all for our final monthly talk. I love you both. Thank you so much for being who you are and spreading the good word. We all need it.
Thanks.
And again, you can email us if you're interested in Firehawk that Kathleen was talking about. If you're interested in learning more about mindful meditation or yoga, or you have a group of people that you want to invite Jessica to, you can send us an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. If you want Suzanne's free ebook, again, email us, info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. Let us know that you're looking for that free ebook. She also talks about the toxic seed soils, which we haven't even mentioned on this particular podcast, but we'll talk more about that. But please feel we are with you. We want you to join our crusade. We want you to be as educated as Kathleen is, as far as understanding what's happening in the dirt and the soil, and taking it all the way up to the brain for mindfulness. We are here to support you. You are never, ever alone. So I guess that's how we'll wrap it up. Thank you for that meditation, Jessica. And I guess it's good night for now. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Much love to everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
Lori. Bye,
All
everyone.
right. Ciao.